and then we'll get running. Oh, should be starting up soon. And then we'll get running. Cool. All right, let's do it. So, I have a painting. Welcome to the final stream of the year. So we're gonna be kind of just continuing painting this. Usually, like that fifth week ends up being like a kind of like show and tell of like, you know, whatever painting that we did the previous month, and then we kind of move into that next month essentially, right? Well, in this case, we're at the end of the year, so we're just gonna do basically just another stream. I'm gonna continue painting on this. I did leave a couple areas to paint. You know, I was getting pretty close to finish, but I was like, you know, we should probably chill out so we have something to actually look at and talk about for these next couple hours. But this is where I'm at, right? So let me kind of break down what I did, and then we'll talk about that. So let's do this. So for those that remember, right, in the earlier weeks, we kind of started off here, right? We were modeling something. We were just creating some interesting shapes. We had an idea, right? It was going to be a kind of like this omakase style restaurant, but it has this kind of vibe to it that maybe isn't so savory, right? It's kind of cold. It feels very greedy, and it just kind of lacks that spirit that like a real place would have. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go to these places in real life, it's a very catered experience, right? And the experience of the interactions between, you know, person to person is very like personal, right? And so with here, I thought, oh, what if we just kind of like corporatize this, right? What if we just made it so there were like robots serving us, and then you could like Wi-Fi in, kind of like how they do. They've been like showing like you can like Wi-Fi in 5G like surgeries essentially, right? That way the person doesn't actually need to be there, which, you know, seems kind of weird, but whatever. But, you know, starting off there, making some shapes, making some ideas, and then, you know, pulling that through. We modeled this for the first 2 weeks, and then from there, I just took my grayscale model. I didn't add any textures or anything because I wanted that to be very, I wanted that to be done during this process, which I showed, right? So we colorized it first, just got the mood and tone set up, just getting everything looking, you know, approximately kind of what we wanted the vibe to feel like. Started adjusting the materials, getting all the local colors down, and getting the color interactions working correctly, right? From here, there were, you know, we had some adjustments and stuff, but this was the kind of main task at that point in time, right? This was what I started rendering. I was really focused on just getting the complexity I needed from certain areas and really pushing like some of the details and designs. And then from here, right, turning that off, we have what we have now, right? Really not that crazy of I guess a process. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody watching. And if everybody has any questions with that, just let me know. But the idea being that, you know, you can build things step by step, right? You know, the big theme about this entire stream, right, for the past year has been, you know, breaking things down into bite-sized, manageable pieces, and then from there, right, making something hopefully that you know, looks pretty cool, right? So let's get into this. So today's gonna be pretty chill. We're just gonna be just hanging out, just talking. If anybody has any questions, definitely hit me up. I do have some things I want to talk about, you know, just from various topics and various conversations I had throughout the week, and then we'll go from there. So actually, let me grab this real quick. Hold up. Where is? Wait a second. Did you delete it? No, he didn't delete it. I don't think he did. All right, cool. Let's do it. So, there's something so I've been seeing, like, you know, I just watch a lot of cooking videos and stuff, and it's like there's this big it's not a trend now, but just in general, right, is that they always put like gold leaf and caviar and shit, you know what I mean? And it just irritates me. It's just like, you know when something's fancy, it's always like the thing, and then they just, you know, stack gold leaf and caviar on it. And so like these little ideas, they're for me, it really is kind of what makes your like decisions unique and interesting, right? Whenever I design, I'm always trying to pull stuff in from my life, from my world, right? You know, things that I'm currently enjoying, things that hobbies that I'm into, whatever it is, right? And so whenever I like pull in designs and stuff, I really wanted to, you know, like pull from things that I enjoy, right? And I'll, you know, not that I enjoy this, but you know, in this aspect, it's kind of things that like almost disgust me in a sense, right? When you go to a place and like there's this tone here, right, where there's a lot of gold, it's very gaudy, right? Because that's the kind of place that they're trying to be. But then, you know, it's like there's this coldness to it. The yellow, the warmth. Like if I were to take this and do like a color hue shift real quick, hue shift, boom, like something a little warmer, right? It's like it feels a little bit nicer, right? This, I don't know, there's something about it. It's the tone kind of leaves, but the tone that I picked is this kind of like yellowy, greenish kind of feel, right? And it just has this kind of sickly kind of vibe to it. And the way that the characters, or I guess the robots in this case, that they're the way they're backlit, right? There's this kind of like ominous kind of feel to it, you know? And then on top of that, like things like, for example, you know, just making the sushi this way where they look overpacked, where they're kind of like blocky in a sense, right? Versus more natural feeling, mostly because his hands are blocky as fuck. So it's like, you know, I'm just having fun with the idea being, oh, what if things just come out of them as cubes just because that's what they can do. That's what the robots are doing, right? And like little fun things like that. It's just things that help, you know, tell that story. And it's little decisions that really help kind of push that narrative, right? Even like having this dude. So I needed this guy to be the head chef in some sort of way, right? Where we just have a guy, you know, one that's a little bit more lead compared to the others, right? And putting this red armband on him, right? Just making it so he's a little more distinct. But also, if you know what red armbands mean in real life, you know, you'll understand kind of what that reference comes from, right? And so things like that, right? When you make decisions, when you decide, you know, when you decide, you know, when to add things in, think about like, you know, what's the best way to do it. I had this wall back here, you can see it in here, it's still yellow, right? And I think something I was doing, oopsies, there it is, the wall in the back here, right, it's very like yellow, and the idea being was I was gonna make it like gold, right? I wanted that kind of be like a gold flake kind of wall type thing. And it was going okay, but I was thinking, oh, what if it just needed something, because I got to the point to where the painting was getting pretty well established at that point. And then I was like, I need a pattern. I need something that really like hits this off. And I wanted to kind of create areas of like detail and like areas of rest. In this case, what I did was I added a high frequency detail to create rest, but also give me just a little bit more noise, right? And I think that's something that can be something very helpful for people like creating images, is that when you think about adding details and when you think about, you know, creating areas of rest and focus and stuff like that, you can do it in an abundance of ways, right? You can use value reads, you can use design shapes. Like for example, I have something I need to add back here, right? Either add back there, or we'll talk about that in a second once I get through this painting more. But the whole point being is I need you to look here, right? That's why he's the only one that has actually made something, you know? And then there's this light behind him, you know, on top of the light on top of him, right? And then, you know, he's the brightest. There's that, you know, identifier saying that he's a little bit different than the others. He's definitely in the center as well. But also like these shelves kind of leading us, and the light shapes and the other shelves kind of leading us that way. And it creates all these like cool ways to lead us back into the scene, as well as like, you know, I had this pattern, which is this pattern here, and I wanted to create, for one, I needed something a little less plain, right? Just it was competing with kind of this front area here, right? And so I needed to kind of tone all of it down. And it sounds really weird to do that, but I toned it down by creating this noise, because now when you actually look at this, there's a noisy detail. Oops, that was really terrible tracing. There's a noisy detail there, and there's like a noisy like detail here, right? And because a lot of it is noisy, it really helps you identify some of the more simple things. Because when you add detail to an area, right, you can do it in a couple different ways. Like really what we're doing is we're trying to attract attention. That's why this robot here is more painted than this one. I have like a little bit of material indication, a little bit of things here and there, but the design on him is so much more in depth just because, you know, we want to really look at that robot. So I kind of focused my attention on that focal point, right? And then now, after that, it's because the forms are simple, the areas around it being complex can really help push that simplicity. Because really what we're looking for is contrast, right? Contrast in values, contrast in color and hue, and then contrast in noise distribution, right? More simpler areas tend to stand out in this case, creating, you know, nice little focal points for us to kind of look at, you know? So things like that, fun ways to just experiment. Really what you're doing is when you feel that something's wrong with your painting, or, you know, just I try to identify it, you know, because it was feeling very gold-ish, right? And I think because the robot is, it's like gray, black, monochromatic basically at the end of the day. And like, I needed that to stand out. And in this case, the yellowish light is making him look yellowish, right? And so to offset that, using that kind of bluish, tealish kind of tone, not only helps add to that greenness of the scene, but also helps make that yellowish robot stand out. It's not yellow, but in this lighting it is. And that creates a little more contrast. So hopefully that makes sense. Just little plays on values and, you know, lighting and various things. And like just adding, like there's a light source back here. So if I can go turn that off. Where the hell is it? No. Can I grab it? No. I gotta turn off my CC layer first. Gotta turn off my other atmosphere layer first. There he goes. There's like, you know when shelves have that lighting scenario? I had it like this, and I was like, it's not really standing out as much as I want. I wanted just that little bit more, because I need that line to create some attention, to kind of pull focus in, as well as like kind of silhouette these objects a little bit more, and then that guy's head. So little things like that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus on this guy's head and then a little bit of that background. I still need to paint that a little bit. Actually, I might start with the background just to get that set up. That way we're in a just kind of a better space whenever we're finishing this off, right? Because, you know, you don't want to do the painting and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I still got to do the back, you know? Cool. All right. So let's do this. Lynn says hi. Hello. All right. Never in my life have I thought of a cube with saw. But, you know, it's interesting. You know, things like that. You want to think like, I think something that I like tapping into is what would be weird to see. You know what I mean? Like when you go to a restaurant like this, and when you go to places like the more handmade things look, right? The more the fancier they tend to feel, especially at a place like this where, you know, you're watching the guy make it in front of you, right? But like when you go to, let's say, a supermarket and you get like a box of sushi, it's very like, it can feel very perfect oftentimes, and it's like as if it just came out of a machine and then they cut it up and they just like slapped it into a box, right? That's the whole idea. I'm trying to make it feel like it came from a machine, because in reality it did. You know, it comes from this robot, and it just feels odd. It kind of and you know, I'm playing with that idea of what we understand our like, you know, in our world, like what we understand about places like this. You know what I'm saying? Little things like that, it really does go a long way. You know, try to create symbolisms and symmetry between our world and theirs, and it creates this really nice, cool, like, I don't know, just base understanding that people might not see when they look at it. They don't always get it, right? But they understand it. You know what I'm saying? So it's very abstract, and little things like that. It's never gonna save your painting, but it will usually help you help your design kind of just make a little more sense. You know what I'm saying? All right. So I'm gonna kind of do the same thing in the back here. I have a couple robots. I'm gonna cut them out, and then we'll just kind of start basically trying to hide them a little bit. You know what I mean? So, because in reality, right now we already have all of our focal points done. This is something that I usually don't show just because it's usually really quick. So I'm just gonna kind of spend some time doing that today. But you know, boom. I'm gonna like cut this out and do a thing that you know. Bob. I will say, I think I get a lot of questions throughout the just throughout like the weeks and stuff, right? Not that my ideas are like the best in the world, right? But a lot of people have trouble, you know, creating ideas, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's just coming up with interesting new ways to see things and helping them make decisions based off of, you know, their life experiences, right? Because that's a very foreign concept to a lot of students. I think when we as artists, we're always trying to look for the coolest, newest idea, whatever that means, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, watching media is usually helpful, like, you know, watching movies, playing games, reading books, doing whatever, right? Like that helps. That's one of the best things. But I think for me, one of the biggest things, like as an artist, that you need to do, right, really is like, you know, just get out there more, do things, you know. And it sounds crazy because it's like, it sounds funny because it's like, you know, it's, you got to be painting, right? You got to be getting better at your craft or whatever. And in reality, what usually happens, what I've seen with a lot of students, is that they get really good at painting, right? Just the act of, you know, putting, you know, images on the canvas, doing things, whatever it is, right? It's like people generally speaking get good at that. Because it's really, in reality, not that hard to be passable at that craft. You know what I mean? To be able to draw and paint whatever you're kind of thinking, usually, I mean, that's, you know, there's a difficulty to it, absolutely. But in reality, it's not the hardest thing that we actually have to do, right? And so we usually run out of ideas way before we run out of, thanks to the ability to draw something. You know what I'm saying? Like you can draw most things, but like creating something worth drawing, that's something completely different. And so what I usually recommend for everybody, like kind of in that more intermediate advanced level, and you know, this for everybody, you know, this live stream really is catered towards those types of people, right? The more intermediate advanced type student, because you know, I don't really like teach the fundamental ideas that much, right? You know, I do that in class and all that, so you know, I don't really try to do it here. But in reality, it's not that I don't find it useful. It's just that there's so many other better teachers that can teach it. You know what I'm saying? But for me, learning how to be an actual production artist, someone that actually knows what they're doing when it comes to design and understanding production flow and what to show in portfolios, that for me, that's what's really missing in a lot of like the conversations that we have. And so, you know, that's kind of the main idea behind what all these streams are about, right? But going back to our topic a second ago, it really is like just trying to bring in life experiences, right? Like when you're as an artist, your ability to draw and paint is just your ability to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just your ability to put words, to say words. You know, when you're a kid, you know, you start learning vocab words, but you know, your sentences don't really mean much. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of whatever. But as you start getting better, you start learning how to put words together that actually mean something, that convey feeling, that convey ideas, that convince people of things, that make people feel a certain way, whatever it is. And you start using those words to say things. Art is the exact same thing, except we're just doing it with visuals, right? What are you saying with your images? Being able to draw and paint is just able to, you know, use your words, right? Being able to do studies, that's all that is just able to, you know, say something. You're just basically reading off of a script essentially, because someone already wrote that for you, right? Whether that's a study from a master, whether it's from nature, it's already there. You're not really using your voice to say anything, right? which is good which is fine for those things. When you're doing a study, you're not really focusing on some other things, right? But as an artist, learning how to communicate, learning how to bring in ideas that are unique, learning what it means to pick certain colors, that's what you want to do, right? That's what's going to move the needle and actually make you somebody worth hiring, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So we had this conversation a little while ago. It was in one of the chats. For those that don't know, I do some photography stuff, not like a pro or anything, but just, you know, I have a camera, I walk around, I do things. And so one of the bigger reasons why I did that, sorry, my throat's all gummy. One of the bigger reasons why like I got into photography as a whole was just because I wanted to still, like, I still like doing art, right? Sorry. I still like doing art. I still enjoy the act of image making, right? But it's so hard to, like, you know, work 8 hours a day, you know, 10 hours a day, whatever it is, for 5-6 days a week, and then go, I'm gonna go paint some more. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. That is legit crazy. You have to be a little bit insane. Like, even me just doing this live stream right now, it's a little bit insane. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is probably the 5th or 6th painting I've done this week, and it's Thursday for me. You know, like, I have technically 2 more days left, but 1 more day left. And it's just like, you got to be a little bit crazy to just say, you know what? I have all this free time. Let's do exactly what I was doing a second ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's a little weird. Let's just say it how it is. And with photography, or, you know, with a lot of other art and various things like that, it's like, you still gotta be growing. You still have to, like, do stuff to help you, you know, get it, like, to get you to the level that you need to get to. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people, I would say, suffer from this guilt, right, of not being able to produce day in, day out. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you do art and you're, like, taking that break, right? I would say most of us feel guilty. You shouldn't, first and foremost, right? But that's not going to stop us from feeling guilty, right? You know, it's just saying, stop it, don't do that. You know, it's not going to work. But we still want to be creating art. We still want to do things that are, you know, art adjacent or still learning, right? And one of my first things that I kind of learned to do whenever that came along was, watch movies, play games, right? Because even though you're not doing, you know, art specifically, right? What you are doing is taking in, you know, art and design. You know, you're understanding what the industry needs of us. Because, you know, if you play that game and that game wins Game of the Year, you're like, okay, cool. You know, you bet your ass that every single studio for the next, I don't know, year, right, 2-3 years, is going to be like, hey, we're going to create the next God of War, right? It's Monkey King now. It's that Wukong game at this point, probably, right? If it's winning all those awards, chances are every studio is going to be referencing that project, you know? And so you got to know those things, and that's part of your research phase. But you can use that, you can use your free time and something that you actually enjoy doing to do that research. You know what I'm saying? So that's where photography for me comes in, right? Where, you know, I still need to get out. I still need to, like, go and do things, you know, like playing games and watching a movie. That helped for a little bit because, you know, it was cool to, like, go and, you know, just go do whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could watch a movie, play a game, right? But eventually I'm like, okay, I've been doing that for a little while now. And for me, that's kind of where art comes in. Now it's just the next thing. It's my ability to still compose, right? Still like create images, still do things, because it's still artistic, right? Like, photography is still artistic. And so now I can still do the stuff that I'm doing, create images, right? But now just with a different medium, essentially. I'm just using a different brush. And so that's where having hobbies, doing things, really gets you out of that zone. And because of that, because you're out doing things, it allows you to learn new things. How many projects have I done just this past live stream where I referenced, oh, hey, yeah, I'm doing this thing. You know, I'm doing photography, right? That first project in January was a camera, you know? And those ideas, guess what? Came from my photography. You know, I live in Japan now, right? And guess how many Japanese projects I've had these last couple months? I mean, I've been doing Japanese projects forever, but still, you know, it's like just things of like getting out, doing things. And it doesn't even have to be anywhere far. It doesn't have to be anywhere crazy. I understand where I'm at right now is a very particular, you know, place, but you know, you can do this in your neighborhood, right? I used to go on walks in my neighborhood just throughout the week, and it was like it was weird. You're just looking at a sidewalk. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. It's oh, that's weird. Did I miss that whole cut? You just be walking outside, and then you see like this crack on the sidewalk, and you're like, hey, huh, I never thought about doing that. You know, it's not that you never thought about doing a crack on a sidewalk, but you never thought about doing it that way. Or even like tree roots coming in, the sidewalk lifting up, things that you know about, right? Things that we understand as artists or as people, right? Just looking at it. But when it comes to replicating that in our work, that's where it gets really hard. Because you can't just summon that information and be like, you know, oh yeah, I got it. That's it. I downloaded it. No, it doesn't work that way, right? Because, you know, how many of you have designed something where it'll be like just something very familiar, whether it's like a phone or a prop or whatever, right? And then somebody looks at it, somebody that's giving you a crit, whether it's your teacher or whoever. How many of you designed something and they said, hey, that doesn't work at all? You know, did you see this? Did you see that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just something where they're like, oh, this thing that, you know, like for example, like a gun or something. This happens a lot in weapons. You know, just setting up like the iron sights, or setting up like the scope, or setting up the way the hand, the you know, with the trigger and everything is, or the stock and all these things. It's like all these various pieces where when you look at it, you'd probably be able to explain it to somebody, right? Like in real life, it's like you're looking at a thing and it's like, great, right? But then when it comes to designing it, I don't know, man. Something in my brain like turns off. It's weird, you know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Who knows? But the whole point being is, you know, you can see things, but you might not know it. You know, it takes a bit of really researching and learning. Like how do we actually understand the thing that we're looking at here? You know, things like that. It takes a while. It takes a second to really like get your brain to understand these things. But you know, going out and doing things is really what gets you there. And I strongly suggest everybody, like if you are somebody that is very stressed out about trying to find work, very stressed out about trying to do whatever it is that you want to do, right? I would highly recommend take a break. You know, step outside, go breathe, go touch some grass. Who knows, right? Just go do something, because that going out and doing things is what fuels your ideas. You know, the more ideas you have, the better your images come. And you know, I'm the same exact way. I need to go outside more. I need to go do more things in life, right? But every time I do, you know, especially because I'm like, I get pretty busy. So like, if it's not like a live stream, it's mentorship. If it's not mentorship, it's freelance. If it's not freelance, it's just work. And like, there's always something going on. And I always have a hard time stepping outside, you know, just going for a walk. Because I'm like, I got to do this painting real quick. Because the 45 minutes to an hour that it would take me to do the walk, you know what I'm saying? Like if you go outside and walk for like 30, 45 minutes, I can actually do a painting in that amount of time, right? When I was a student, it was funny. It was like, I would do like, you know, you sit down, you do a painting, you're 5 or 6 hours into it and you got like a thumbnail, you know? And that was if you're like good at what you're doing. Like when you suck at it, like when you're first starting off, you'd be 5 or 6 hours and you like barely started. But now, and so like, you know, during those times, we're like, yeah, we'll go for a walk because I still have 5 or 6 hours left, you know? And it's like, oh yeah, it's, you know, I have time because I'm just gonna be here all day. So it's like, it's not anything, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah, a 30-minute walk in the grand scheme of that assignment really isn't much. But when you start becoming a professional, that 1 hour, that's the difference between one painting or two paintings. You know what I'm saying? That's one thumbnail. And then you start like realize, you start like creating these I guess these excuses where like, nah, I can't, I gotta finish this up, or I gotta do this. And you know, eventually you're just stuck inside all day, and then your brain starts to rot, or you know, you're starting to, you just get tired. And but you don't mentally know that right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something where it does take a second to realize that you're burning out, that you're slowing down, and all of these things, you know. And it really is detrimental to your career, because then your ideas start to get really bad, and then from there on you're just creating just trash, essentially. You know what I mean? So things like that. It's go outside, go do things, go be inspired, and pay attention. You know, I think something that happens a lot, especially with photography, to be completely honest, is that because you're so into trying to capture the moment, you actually lose the moment. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds funny, but like, you're looking at it so deeply that you actually forget to actually just experience it. Just sit down and breathe. You know, I do this all the time. We did this thing where we went out and did a photo shoot, or just a shooting day where we just went out and just took pictures, right? And we were shooting this thing. It was the cormorant fishing, you know. And I went and we we're shooting stuff, and because I was so into like taking the pictures, I wasn't actually looking at anything. You know what I'm saying? And it was actually hilarious, because I was like, I'm here, I'm like deeply experiencing it, because it's like you're taking the photos and you're like composing, and you're like waiting for the things, you know, doing all the business, you know. And then you realize you're like, I don't remember any of it, you know, because you're just sitting there taking pictures. You're not really focusing on like the thing happening at hand. You know what I'm saying? And it's a weird experience. Something to really pay attention to, but really experience it, right? Go out, do things. I have to like actually leave my camera at home sometimes, because I'm like, you know, I want to actually just walk around and just think and breathe for a second, you know? All right. Boom. See how quickly this guy is like he's just solidifying, you know what I mean? Just using a little bit of dodge tool. Like, if once you lasso him out, just a little bit of dodge tool, a little bit of like, you know, airbrushing, and you start creating this nicer, stronger form. I would highly recommend for everybody, like, understand the how to get the most efficient I guess painting process for yourself, right? Obviously this isn't the best like painting I've ever done, but even just zooming out, you're like, oh shit, yeah, he's almost done, you know. I'll group that together. This is BG Chef, and then let's keep going. One of the major things that this background's kind of missing right now is mostly variety, right? Something that the reason why like a model, for example, something like this, or even something like this one here, the reason why it looks very 3D, right, is usually because all the materials are exactly the same. Everything is kind of lit the same way. There's the same contrast, and really just lighting values that kind of create that difference, right? And so by adding that next value pass, right, just separating the materials, it starts actually becoming a decent painting, right? It's not a painting quite yet, but you know, it's getting there. And then from there, painting that whole foreground, you get the material separation, and you get the material understanding, the reflectiveness, all that stuff. That background was just missing that. If I turn that chef back off, right, it just feels very like monochromatic back there. But once you add that guy, you're like, oh shit, that is a person, that is a thing, you know, and we can kind of like create something kind of cool from there. So cool. So now he needs a bit of lighting, and then bam. Oops. Oh, is there any questions from those hanging out in the Discord or hanging out on the YouTubes? Just hit me up. I did have some things I wanted to bring up. I have some questions from various conversations I had throughout the week. We had this question yesterday during the private live stream, during the feedback sessions. Yesterday, that I did want to talk about, if no one has anything to talk about, it was about portfolios and about like kind of aiming your portfolios at certain companies. Because even me, I've said this before, where when you're first starting off, there is a you really want to like aim your portfolio somewhere. You know what I mean? You want to like do a thing that um, is useful at a studio. You know what I'm saying? Because if you do something like too unique and too different, it's not that it's wrong. I do think that's the better way to go, right? But it is the harder way to go, because you kind of start like, oops, what the hell? No. You kind of start like, you create work that doesn't resonate with anybody when you're super unique like that, especially in the beginning. I'd even say in like the kind of middle areas too, like for like mid-level concept artists as well. It's not until like you're like a super like senior where that kind of becomes, I don't want to say useful, but it does become more important later on. But in the beginning, it can be very hard to be super unique like that, right? So aiming your portfolio at a studio to help you get there, right? To get in somewhere, because the first goal, right, is get a job, right? Just get employed, because it's so difficult to do that already. So aiming your portfolio somewhere kind of gets you there a little bit easier, right? Because, if it looks like you can work at a place, generally speaking, they'll probably hire you, right? If they're looking for work, looking for employees, and you fit the bill in terms of like what they need from you, right? Which is usually your best guess is whatever it is that they're currently working on. You know what I mean? If they're working on like God of War, right? Generally speaking, you want to at very least look like you can do the work that they do. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be a literal God of War fan art piece, right? But it does have to be something that feels like it would fit in their world, right? That's how that works. And so, whenever you create a portfolio, you want to aim at a studio. The question was, how do you balance that, right? How do you balance, I guess, creating a portfolio for a studio? Maybe they're not hiring. Maybe they just let go of a bunch of people, right? Because just imagine you're trying to go to Ubisoft, right? And then they just let go of a ton of people. It's like, it does make it difficult, right? So the biggest advice that I usually give for students, right, is aim your portfolio not just at a studio, but at a group of studios, right? But that doesn't mean doing like, a bunch of different styles. Like, you're not trying to do like Riot and then Naughty Dog and then like Disney, right? It doesn't work that way. But what you are trying to do, though, if you're trying to go for, let's say, something like Disney, right? And I understand there is nuance in this. For those that are in VizDev listening to this, I get it, right? I know that there is differences between these studios. But if you made a portfolio for Disney, you could probably work for Pixar. You could probably work for DreamWorks. You could probably work for Netflix. You know what I'm saying? There is nuance in that, I understand. But generally speaking, they are roughly the same. And so you would get, something that probably works out pretty well, right? It won't be exact. There is going to be some things where the recruiter or whoever might tell you that, hey, we're a little more story driven. We're a little more design driven. We're a little more this and that, right? But generally speaking, you want to hit a group of studios, because if one studio's not hiring whenever you need a job, you want to make sure that you have some other studios that are hiring as well. You want to hit studios that not just one studio, but studios that that you can do some work for at other studios. Maybe either while you wait, if one's your true dream studio, or while you just hopefully you can get there too, right? If you want to work at Blizzard, if Riot gave you an offer, I mean, chances are you'd probably take that. You're probably cool with that, right? And so that's what we're trying to go for. So just when you're setting up your portfolio, just understand that being hired, right, it's not just about your skills. It's about your your ability to communicate. It's your ability to put your work out there for people to see it. It's your ability to stand out, but also the luck in which it takes for a studio to be hiring when you are looking, you know, because that's one of the bigger things as well. You could be the best fit in the world. If they're not hiring, it doesn't matter, you know, just because they're not currently, they're booked up, you know. There is nobody kind of there is no one there to, you know, I guess hire you. There's no room, you know what I'm saying? So things like that. It can be hard to find work, and kind of limiting yourself to one place really can make that way harder. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, my voice is super gummy. Oops. Ooh, there you go.
I can.
What's up, dude?
I want to add some more thing about this question. I have a strategy right now. I was thinking maybe when you aim in a studio, like with the group thing you are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
if it's better if the topic of your project is something like people know, like maybe you want to do a project for a portfolio project for Ubisoft, and you do something like the Beauty and the Beast but in the style of Assassin's Creed,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not totally random, and because people can know it, uh, you're gonna have more view because you have to do something like people like. If you do something like totally original, maybe we can end up like Concord, like something nobody know, nobody have interest. Maybe it's not a good strategy. So try to do something like at the same time fit in the studio, but can be appealing for the viewer or other art director. Maybe you can touch like the emotion. Maybe they have an emotional attachment with the Beauty and the Beast, and or whatever, doesn't matter, but something a little bit famous, not going totally
Yeah.
random. And I was thinking too to add another level of interest. If you can make like, let's think character design, the main character, maybe this can be a little bit too much, like, or maybe maybe not, maybe like the face of an actor, famous actor or politician. I don't know, Donald Trump or whatever, Elon Musk, a hero or a famous actor. You can add another layer of interest to make your portfolio pop up a little bit more. But anyway, you have to do like a good job with the design and all the rest, but adding this small thing maybe can be useful. What do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely like with the story idea, right? Yes, absolutely, right? Like, you know, if you pick Beauty and the Beast or something. What I will say about that, be careful. Um, it can be very tough for some people that, I don't want to say it like this, but aren't qualified to be giving you portfolio reviews, right? But like it because it pisses me the hell off. Like when I see a review, like I'll be watching people give reviews or something, and I'll be like, oh, this is Beauty and the Beast, but redesigned as a sci-fi, whatever, right? That, you know, that's not that weird. And so what happens is some reviewers, if they're bad at their job and should be ashamed about giving reviews, you can see how much I like these people. They'll go, oh, but that's not how Beauty and the Beast goes. You know, oh, but Beast is this, and the metaphor is this, or you know, it's this. You know what I'm saying? Like they're too into the topic. They know too much. And the reason I hate that is just because it's who gives a fuck, you know? Because it's like, dude, it's a design, man. You know what I mean? It's like the understanding is like, just look at the designs and see what I'm trying to tell you. You know what I mean? But the issue with this is people can get locked onto that, right? You can have the best design in the world, but someone's going to look at it and be like, oh, that's not how Beauty and the Beast goes. That's not how this thing goes. And so they get locked onto it, and it could be their weird understanding of a topic half the time. More often than not, it's their misunderstanding of what this thing is, and it creates this sense of like they're already working against your portfolio in that sense. You know what I'm saying? They're already being critical about something that has nothing to do with your art. In reality, it really is mostly them, right? And so what I usually do is I do this for all my mentorship students, I do this for all my students in general. I always recommend pick a story, right? Any story, hopefully something on the older side. Don't pick something brand new. Don't do a Wukong redesign. You know what I mean? That's dumb. Do something a little bit older so it actually makes you create new visuals. But two, you don't have to reference that name in your project, right? Because, you know, it doesn't, all we need to see is designs and that you can think things through. But the second that you name something in the design, we're like, oh, this is supposed to be this, this is supposed to be whatever. They're going to be like, oh, but that's not what that project's about. That's not what that IP is, And maybe they're even someone that worked on that IP. They're like, oh no, we did this. It's like, but that really has nothing to do with your design skills. That's just like, it really is just semantics, right? And so I say, just pick a story, because first and foremost, we're not writers, These stories are well thought through. There's character growth. There's problems, there's enemies, there's whatever, whether it's a game, whether it's a thing, whatever it is, there is a thought out process to it that, generally speaking, it's a whole different career, right? People want to be writers as well, right? And so there's a skill level there that you're just not trained in. And trying to write your own story, it's not that it's impossible. If you're into that, do that. But it's oftentimes, for one, not necessary, and two, generally speaking, we're probably not good at it just because we're not writers. And to think that you can probably isn't a great idea, right? So use a story, use the bones, and design from there, right? This way, you have a seemingly well thought out project, and the well thought out part comes from your designs, not from the plot, right? We don't want to be tied up into plots and then, not have time for doing the paintings. You know what I'm saying? Oftentimes I'll do portfolio reviews where somebody be like, dude, yeah, I have this, 60-page document on this story that I wrote. And I'm like, oh, cool. Where's the images? I just have the one. It's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, you should probably apply to being a writer or something. It sounds like you enjoy that more, So really understand that the story is important, but it's not important for us to do, because even on projects, I've never once been told to write something on the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll do things where we might inform the writers, right? Where it's like, they have, let's say they have, there's a project that you're on or whatever. Oftentimes you'll do stuff and then that might influence the writers, like the way I designed a prop or designed a location would help the writers understand something, and then they change stuff. That happened on Transformers a ton, right? But you're not tasked to actually write anything, because your task is to draw and design, right? So long story short, pick a story and then, design it, and you don't have to reference it. You don't have to be like, this is a redesign of so and so. It doesn't have to be like that. It can just be, whatever your project name is, and you end it there, right? And then what was the next part of that? Sorry, I got caught up on that
How
one thing.
about adding like faces of actor or famous people?
You totally
What
can.
do you think?
Don't. What I would highly advise against, right, is just copying, like just copy and pasting a face like Brad Pitt's face on your character. You probably don't want to do that. Main reason is, it's not your photo, generally speaking, unless you took it of him, I guess. I don't know, but you can just do the painting next to it, like like the Marvel actors. Generally speaking, a majority of them, from what I've seen, they repaint the face. And whether that's like they just take the face and paint on top of it or do a side-by-side paint, I don't know. I don't work there. But generally speaking, they do repaint a lot of the faces to match the illustration quality, right? So that's one of the bigger things, matching the illustration quality. But I personally would just paint any face on there, but understand that when you pick a face, right? You do it for a reason. So for example, when you pick, let's say, an actor, right, to apply onto a character, for example, usually there's a reason why you wanted that actor, right? If you wanted someone like Danny DeVito, right, you're not looking for a Brad Pitt type character, right? It's just different. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same type of person. And so there's a characteristic there that you enjoyed or that you feel that fits your character, but you don't need Brad Pitt's face. You just need to understand that characteristic. Don't just put any face. Understand why you want this face. You want this certain face. I want him to look more rugged, more, like lumberjack type. I want him to really feel strong, or like, look like he really bottles up his emotions because he can't express himself because he's a man. You know what I mean? Like that kind of idea. You find a face that works for that and you paint something like it, right? That's what design is. You're trying to design the character into, whatever it's supposed to be. And using certain faces will give you that. But you don't have to pick an actor's exact face. In production,
Yeah,
I have done it where, you just drop a face on there. And the reason for that would be because that's the actor playing the role, right? Like when I've done live action things, they're like, "Hey, yeah, just grab this face, put it on this character." And because that's who that is, right? That's fine, right? You do want to paint on top to like kind of stitch it together and make it look like your illustration, but overall, it's not like the worst thing ever. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that makes sense. So if you want to make a tough guy, you choose like Josh Brolin, the actor for Thanos, and so the face have to match with the personality of the character,
Mm-hmm.
and you repaint the like maybe the hair, maybe the lighting. You copy his face, but you try to make it fit a little bit more, like just not just stitch an image on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially as a student, because if you're a professional, if you're working in production, you kind of get away with a lot more than you think. Like in a production setting, you, I mean, you really could just drop drop a face on there and you'd probably be okay. More often than not, right? Just because they're like, we just need the image, man. We don't care about the bells and whistles. We just need to make sure this concept works. You know what I'm saying? And so, in production, we do that stuff all the time, right? But as a student, what you really want to make sure is that you're showing them your fundamentals, right? You're showing them, hey, I know how to paint. I know how to do this thing. And so when you show a character, you might as well paint the face, because you want to show them that you know how to paint a face. You understand what it takes to paint, likeness, because some clients, they won't allow you to just drop in a photo like that, because that's not how that works. You know what I'm saying? So in a portfolio, you always want to show the hard way, the long way through, right? I'd rather see painting ability than photo bashing, right? If you do photo bashing, it's not that it's bad or anything, but the idea being is you really want to give the reviewer the understanding that, oh, I know how to do these things, right? And that photo bashing is definitely a thing that you want to learn and learn how to do, but it is something where if you photo bash complete like 100%, right? We want to see like how well you can actually paint as well, because we're gonna need to design things, and there's some things that you just won't have a photo for. And so if you have too much photo bashing, right, it's just gonna be like all photos, and I'm gonna be like, can this guy like actually paint? Can this person actually do what I need them to do? Sometimes we have assignments where we just gotta paint things sometimes because it happens. And you want to show that long way around. If you don't, you're going to get a lot of questions. And that's what a portfolio is supposed to, work against. It's supposed to stop people from asking questions on your skill. You know what I'm saying?
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, great questions. I think, it's these portfolio questions that like really really can be a mystery for a lot of people. I had a lot of reviews. It was interesting because during Lightbox, I did a ton of reviews. I did a ton of reviews. And obviously the ones that I give my students, they already know what I'm about. They already know, they already know what I talk about, right? But for the ones that are kind of newer, the ones that hadn't met me before, I gave the reviews based off of what we actually do at work, right? Because I don't think something about me, I don't really like giving people portfolio reviews based off of like student ideas. You know what I mean? Like, because it's very like they'll grow out of that very quickly. So it's like, oh yeah, like move that line there. This is a tangent, or like do that. I'm like, that's such a waste of time, dude. At least for me, because like once you fix that tangent, they're still lost. They still don't know what to do after that. Because they're students, right? That's just they just don't know. So whenever I give reviews, I like to give it to them based off of like what I would actually receive as a professional, right? And focus on the larger picture outside of like being able to draw and paint, right? And so whenever I talk to some of those students, it was very story driven, very design driven, very like intentionality driven, right? And that really like hit a couple students. They're like, I'd never heard that before. I'd never even heard that topic. And I was like, holy shit, and it's crazy. It's crazy because that's all we do, right? When it comes to design, all we're doing, like the stuff that I'm talking about here, the stuff that I'm talking about when I say like, the sushi is cubed because, where's my line not drawing? There it is. The sushi is cubed because of these robot hands, or like the coldness of like a screen or the backlight. That's all the shit that we talk about during work, because most everybody can draw and paint when it comes to studio work. Like a good like 99% of people that you're going to work with know how to draw and paint at a very high level, right? So it gets this point where basically anything you draw and paint, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's just like, okay, cool, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so basic, because everybody can, right? And so when I give reviews, I'm always talking about like, how do we improve that thinking process, because that's what's really going to move the needle. You know what I mean? And so when you're designing, try to push those deeper thoughts into. Oops, what's happening here? Why is that being weird? Should that clip into there? No. What the? Sorry, hold up. I'm trying to figure out what happened here. That should be like that. What is that piece doing? Give me 2 seconds. Okay. That's odd. Oh, okay, I cut from the wrong piece. That's why. Son of a bee. There be a copy. No, that shouldn't. There you go. Much better. Cool. Just checking. So, what was I saying? I was saying portfolio stuff, right? Yeah, just like whenever you're working on your portfolio and things like that, right? Just understanding that, like, when you design, like, you're designing with intention. You're designing with that story in mind. You're really trying to push those deeper thoughts, right? Because that's what we actually do in studio. You know what I'm saying? That's what when we're designing based off of these smaller ideas. We're kind of giving the scope of the image, and we as designers, we're the ones that are told, hey, you need to. Why is my lettering so messed up? Sorry. We're told to like design something that really evokes a certain emotion, right? Have you ever like, I want this room to feel greedy. Have you ever thought about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever thought like, I want this room to feel greedy. It's like greedy's like a person, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a it's an idea, it's a thing, but like how do you make something feel greedy? You know, it's a very odd thing to say. But we do that kind of stuff all the time. And this is where like understanding what that intention is, understanding that story, really pushing that narrative inside of your designs. Every time I make a decision from here, right? Like every small little thing from the armband to the shape of the sushi to the shape of the wasabi, all of it, right? The way it's lit all helps push that idea. Is it the best idea in the world? Who knows, right? But at the very least, I'm in that realm. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm in the realm of like trying to push those ideas and trying to get people to understand, you know, what I'm trying to push across. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, long story short, that's why we I do recommend using actors' faces at least as a reference, especially for environment artists specifically, right? I think for character artists, you do whatever you need to do, but as environment artists, it's funny. So I do this thing with cars too in modeling, but if you're bad at painting faces, right? Use use an actor as reference, and then it won't. You know, you'll have the vibe. You'll get pretty close, but it won't look like that person, which is perfect because you don't need it to look like that person. Not all the time. If you're, you know, if you're working in like a production or something where you're trying to create likeness or do whatever, right? Yeah, you gotta make the thing happen. But as an environment designer, generally speaking, they won't really care if your dude looks like the dude or not. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you're the environment designer, you know. And so for me, I just pull up the reference. I'll paint the best I can, and then because the best I can is absolute trash, it won't look like the guy or it won't look like the girl, and then they'll just be like, cool, yeah, it's close enough. You know, and it's like it looks like its own like character at that point. You know, all the faces I do, I'm always trying to not trying, but I'm like just copying something. And because my proportions like a little bit off, like 2%, 5%, whatever, it's like the likeness isn't quite there. And then it, you know, it's like, oh, wow, that's a whole unique person. And you're like, yeah, thanks, man.
Okay, why do you think the artists for the Marvel movie they paint the faces? I mean, you don't need for concept art to do that because I think everybody know like who the artist is and why they just don't stick a photo for that. Why they do all this painfully time consuming process for the concept art?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't work there, so I can't say for sure. But what I will say is, I bet you it has something to do with their culture, right? Just because like there's some places, some studios will be a little bit more. I don't know. Like they'll be more like they don't really care what it ends up looking like because like let's say for example like there's an actor or something, right? They know who the actor is. I just need the suit, you know what I mean? Like just give me the design or whatever, just show me the other stuff because we'll just plop a face on there, right? Most studios are like that. It's more efficient, it's more whatever, right? And to be honest, I think from what I've been seeing with a lot of like the more current Marvel stuff, they are caring a lot less, I will say. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? From what I've noticed, but they'll. I feel like a lot of it has to do with the culture around the artists that are leading the studio because maybe that's what they like to see. Maybe they're allowed to use it a little bit more in their illustrations, right? Like, you know, because there's two types of concepts that can happen in a studio, right? It's a very like, you know, we don't talk about it, but it is something that like it does happen where when you work at a studio, you know, there's two types of concepts that usually go out or come out of the studio. There's the internal concept art and then there's the showing concept art, right? The concept art that you see publicly is like the concept art where it's like the splash arts and all these things, and you know what I mean. It's like the cool. They'll actually take time aside to clean up that painting to do what they need to do, right? Because you know they want to show it, right? But then there's concept art where it's like we just need a proof of concept. We just need like some, and it'll be like the dirtiest stuff you've ever seen, right? Just because they just need to show something. They're just trying to get an idea across. They don't really care that it's just, you know, a painted whoever. You know what I'm saying? Like a photo bash whoever. They'll cut things. I get direction from my leads all the time on like it's like two photos they just stitch together and like here paint that, right? Because my painting is the one that becomes the thing, but then there's the other concept. So when you are doing concept art, right, generally speaking, you're gonna kind of get both of those, and the ones they show is the illustration work, right? And so for me, you know, I bet you it had something to do with the way they like to run their studio as leads, right? Just because like someone like Ryan Meinerding, right? He really was painting everything. It's who he is, right? And so the leads or the people that are approving the images probably like seeing that more, right? So you know, maybe it's more or less efficient. Who's to tell, right? But the whole point is, more often than not, you'll see that the culture really does define what kind of gets output, right? Some studios don't care. Some really do, right? I've been at studios where, like for example, even if the final product is a line drawing, right? Or not a line drawing, a full on like 3D painting. I've been at places where they'll be like, "Can you do a line drawing and then give me lighting variations and then give me color and then model it out and then, you know, composite that all together?" You know, like I have to do it step by step. It happens, you know what I mean? But I've also been at places where they're like, "Hey, final output is this illustration we need for the thing." And I can show them that exactly, right? I can just give them that exact you know, like illustration as the thumbnail. I can do like lighting, color, and composition all in one step and just hand it to them because they don't really care, you know. Some do, some don't, and you have to kind of understand that about just working in general. Me personally, I do feel like there's a little bit more attention kind of given to the characters or to the illustrations whenever it's done like that, you know what I mean? I do feel, to be completely honest, whenever I see like just a bad photo bash where it's like, you know, it's they maybe they painted the body, maybe they painted the costume, but then like they just slapped a photo face on there. I'm like, it just stands out. It just looks bad. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't look good comparatively to, you know, some of the other stuff. And so, you know, I mean, that's opinion at the end of the day. Who truly knows?
I think is a really useful topic because like Marvel Studios, they have a Ryan Mainderding, Andy Park, Charlie Wen, who they draw almost in the same style, like a lot of paintly. So they dictate the style to everybody. And maybe we should if we try to apply, I don't know, like example Ubisoft, it's a good idea to take a look what the main concept artists do and try to fit as much as possible to their style to make more appealing your portfolio or
Absolutely, you got to do that. It's you have to appeal to whoever's hiring you, right? Like you have to, because that's what hiring is. You're not hired by a studio. For everyone, what you want to understand about design. Netflix does not hire you. Your art director and production designer hire you, right? Your leads hire you. The studio just approves what they chose, right? And so what's the best way to get somebody to, you know, hire you? You have to appeal to their senses, right? And that's the game we play. If it's somebody that's super super 3D heavy, right? When you look at their portfolio and it's like all 3D, all like, modeling, you'll probably get away with that. Sorry, my like throat's really messed up today. If it's somebody like super into 3D, right? Yeah, you should probably do that. If you came across someone like me, and for those that know me, right, like, you know my work, you know what I'm about. We've been doing live streams for a while now, right? If you just showed me only 3D, chances are I probably won't appreciate it as much as you do, right? I'm like, it's cool, it's whatever. But I won't lose my shit over it. And you know why? Because generally speaking, I can see through it, right? You just know. If you work with art long enough, you just understand what you're looking at. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to appeal to your leads. I had a lead at one of my studios. He was really into Star Wars, right? Like super into it. He dressed as a Sith like every Friday. He brought it. He made his own lightsabers that he brought. You know what I'm saying? Like, he likes it. He likes Star Wars. Like, let's be real. And so when you design something, especially like, let's say a spaceship, which I was designing for him, what do you think I referenced? Even though he didn't put that in the reference board, right? That was my extra thing that I threw in there. Like, I used his references that he told me to use. And then I just added just a little bit of this. And when that idea clicked to me, when I understood who this person was, when I understood what they're looking for, my design approvals shot up. It went from it was pretty good. Generally speaking, I'm like 70%. And most of the time I'm getting approved, right? But there's times where they're like, it's not really quite what we're looking for, right? It went from 70% to like fucking 99%. Like, almost everything out the gate was getting approved fast, right? He's just go, yes, that's it, and then approved, and I just finish it up and we move on from there, right? And it's like, because before, what I was trying to do was do what I think is cool. You know what I mean? And it's not that the stuff that I was doing I didn't think was cool, but it was more of like I was only trying to do what was in my taste, right? But your taste is subjective to you, right? And so for, doing stuff for other people, because you have to remember, as a designer, right, you are not designing for yourself, you're designing for somebody else, right? And so when I understood that, I was like, oh, okay. And then I changed my thought process on that, and I designed something that was more in line with what he might have wanted. And then everything just blossomed from there, right? It became so much easier to do stuff just because, he was so much more receptive to the thing. And not that he was hard to work with at all. He was great. But the whole idea is you appeal to those senses, right? So if you're working, let's say in like theme park, generally speaking, the crowd, the leadership there is a little bit older, right? And so whenever I'm working with them, I will give them line drawings. I will kind of, slowly, because doing 3D and stuff like that, they're like, oh, we don't need like full finished illustrations. This isn't, you know what I mean? And they'll see like even something like this, they'll be like, oh, that's a finished illustration. And I'm like, no, man, it's just a concept, right? Because, this is just what we're used to in animation or film or games, right? But in some other places, they might not be used to it, so they might not see it the way you see it. And I think like learning how to almost mind read, right? But like pay attention to who you're talking to. Because if you do something that they like, chances are they're going to improve it. You know what I mean? Chances are they're going to, enjoy that and want to hire you or work with you more. And so the portfolio is the same way, right? If you're trying to work for a place, look at what they do, right? And see who's leadership. And then when you get a meeting with, because usually what happens is, let's say you actually get a meeting, like you apply and you do the thing, and then they're like, hey, we'd like to set up a meeting with our art director, and they'll usually tell you who it is, or the lead, they'll usually tell you who it is. Look them up, look at their work, and understand who you're talking to. Because if you, let's say, for example, I was your art director that was going to be interviewing you for that next round or whatever it is, right? And you go in there and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. So like, I say, hey, tell me how you did this painting, like this painting right here, right? And like, oh yeah, so I modeled this thing out and I got into the UVs and I did those thing and then like I textured it out. It took me a while to get the shaders and this and that. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You know what I mean? Because if you look me up ahead of time, right? And I mean, I have videos. I teach classes. I'm not exactly like, I guess low key about my thoughts about certain things, right? And so when you see that, you should understand that, okay, he doesn't really enjoy those things. He doesn't really focus on that, or he doesn't even care about that. So let me talk about things that he actually cares about, right? That he actually wants to see. And so that's where you want to kind of be when you're designing, right? When you're creating your portfolio, aim for whoever it is that you are trying to interact with. The better you can make that happen, the higher your chances of your portfolio getting approved really is. You're not, don't make something that Disney will hire you for. Don't make something that Naughty Dog's gonna hire you for. Find out who the art director is. Find out who that lead is. Whoever's gonna be looking at your portfolio, look for that person, and then make the portfolio. Right? That's who you want to aim for, because there's people like at Naughty Dog, right, where the lead, right, Luke Berliner, right, he has a certain aesthetic. If you want to appeal to him, you need to hit certain things, right? I'll talk to like Norris and all them, and I'll ask them like, hey, like, what do you guys look for, when you work at like Sony or whatever? And they're like, oh, we look for a lot of like good, strong, like artists. They're like drawing, and then they're really good at design, a lot of ideation, stuff like that. Because they want that, because that's what they're looking for. So you have to appeal to that, But if you show up with like all 3D, all matte paintings, you know what I'm saying? Like, they probably don't do that as much. I'm not saying they don't do it at all. It's just they probably, focus on other things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Cool. That was a super long answer, but hopefully helpful. All my answers are super long.
That's good. Are more clear.
Oh, we had a question last week. I forgot to answer it. Sorry, Andrea. So there was a question last week about starting your own like projects and stuff. And like, how do you go about that, right? Like creating like portfolio work, and like when you start a project, like how do you figure out a prompt and stuff, right? This is a problem that I see a lot with a lot of students, and a lot of people like trying to do like get work and do things. They get so tied into like what the oh, there it is, sorry. Oh, there you go. That's why I was doing that. They get so tied into like like what prompts to make and various things like that, right? Just like what I was saying earlier with the student that like comes in with like a 60-page like packet of like written information and like the backstory, the plot twist, the family tree, all these. I'm like, that's cool, man. I'm glad you thought that deep into it. We don't need 90% of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we need to like when I say, you want to make in-depth decisions, yes, you want to think about some of those things. But you really just got to have to figure out those main ideas. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need every nuance of a character. You want to start designing and kind of let the ideas flow as you design as well. This way, when you actually create your images, right? Like, there is depth to it, but there doesn't need to be the entire iceberg. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying keep it at the top 10% of information, but you don't need the full 100. You know what I mean? You want somewhere between like 50 to 70. You want most of the idea. You don't need all of it, because first and foremost, you'll never have to do that. Generally speaking, if you're doing your own IP, right? Yeah, you're probably gonna have to do that for yourself, right? But for any studios, they just hire people for that. So your prompt, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's just not that big a deal. You know what I'm saying? And so, well, how do you create a prompt that like is effective for storytelling? Because he posted this thing. It was from one of the online art. I'm like blanking on the name. Anyway, it's a prompt generator, right? You basically click randomize and it gives you like fantasy, Egypt, and then like this and that, industrial revolution, whatever. It just combines like keywords that you can use to create your own story, right? To create your own prompt. Those are fine, right? You can do stuff like that. What I would highly recommend, right, is learn how to take a story and create your own ideas based off of that, right? So, like for example, if I took in my classes, obviously you haven't. I'm talking specifically to this person. You haven't taken my class, but like we'll take like a story from a fairy tale, right? And then we'll just use the bones of it. This character and his father, they're poor, and then they this is an actual Grimm fairy tale, by the way. They're poor, and they're like wood. They're wood choppers. They're lumberjacks or whatever. They gather wood, and then they're trying to pay for the son to go to school and encounter this monster, right? It's a very like weird story, but it gives us the bones to kind of work with it, right? We use that and then start designing what our world is based off of. And what I don't like about random generators is that it's random. You have no ties to it. You don't understand this topic like a person that's interested in it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like doing Japanese culture things. You know why? Because I like the place. You know what I'm saying? I live here now, And so it's something where you're going to enjoy the topic a bit more. If you had me do something on like Rome or like, Greek, culture, it's not that I don't think it's cool. I'm just not super into it. You know what I mean? Like it's fine. Greek architecture is amazing by all means. But I'm not like super into it. It's just not what I'm, into. And so my interest in it will kind of wane as I go through. And it's not that like, if I got paid to do it, which happens all the time where, you're working on a project and it's just whatever they want. You're not, as an artist, you don't really decide any of that. The art director, the leads, the production designer, the creative director, whoever, right, decides what that topic is and you just do it because that's your job. But for your own portfolio, for your own body of work, you want something that at the very least you're interested in. If you're not interested in it, no one else sure as hell won't be, because you're not going to find the nuance in it. So if you just have a generator, yeah, it could help you. And, if you're having trouble coming up with topics, sure, use it. But understand, replace some of those with your own, because there's something that you like. You're from Spain. I'm talking specifically to this student. You're from Spain, so like use your culture if you like it. I don't know if you like Spain or not, but it's just like use cultures that you understand, that you enjoy, that you'll actually study on. Like I'm not a professional in Japanese culture, right? But I enjoy it enough to where when I look it up, I have fun researching, because I deep dive into this stuff and I'll find something. Oh, that's pretty cool, and then we'll kind of go from there, right? And so like when you do these things, just understand you want to inject your personality. That's what's going to make something unique. If you do a random generator, you just get surface level things every time. What I usually recommend, start with a culture you like. And it doesn't even matter if you've already done it. Just do it differently this time, And then find references where like, hey, mix Japan with a camera. What does that look like? This is a sci-fi world based off Japanese culture. And the tech is like a 80s camera. You know what I'm saying? You already have a lot with that. And then adding a couple more references to that really gives you the scope and understanding of what that thing couldn't be. You know what I'm saying? So things like that, it really does go a long way. It helps you, for one, learn how to make prompts better, because the better you get at that stuff, the better you're gonna be overall. Because as concept artists, we have to do that all day, right? Every single time I get to work, I'm always not just using their references, but including my own, right? Like the art director and the production designer, they'll hand you a packet where like, hey, look at this, this, and this, right? And then this is, they're kind of guiding you, setting you up. They'll give you a sketch sometimes, right? Whatever it is. But eventually, you have to start. And so when you start, you throw in those extra little bits. You throw in like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm really into, chess, or I'm really into photography. I'm really into cooking, whatever. And then this is kind of what we do. Like there was a knife that I did for, here, hold on. I did it for Blue Eye. I think it's on my website. Did I have it on here? I should. I don't know why I wouldn't. Yeah. So I was really, during this time, I was really into knives, like cooking knives and stuff. And they asked me just to make a knife. They're like, "Hey, can you make a knife for Shindo?" And he's to be cutting something with it, right? But they want it to be kind of Western influenced, but they wanted it to be kind of fancy because he's a rich guy, right? But there's a Western influence to it, right? And so when I designed this knife, for one, I have one almost exactly like it. You know what I mean? It looks almost the same, except for the hammered steel part. But I liked the hammer steel effect on knives because I have a knife that has that. And it's like super cool, and there's a craftsmanship behind it. And thinking that it's a rich person, he just get a knife custom made, and the handle has a very Western theme to it, right? Japanese knives have that octagonal kind of handle to it, right? It's very shaved and it's made of like that lighter kind of wood, right? Here, this is a very Western scent-ish. There's Japanese vibes to it, but the shape of it is different, and it's more of a Western kind of handle. And so when I designed it, I was just pulling some stuff from my kitchen. I just went to my kitchen. I held the knife in my hand. I was like, all right, just do that. That knife handle's from a different one knife that I have. The knife like texture is from something else that I have. He didn't tell me any of this. He just said we need a fancy knife for this scene where he's cutting stuff for this thing, right? I think it was this plate specifically. They needed to cut that dessert on the left side there. But yeah, things like that. It's like you just bring that in because that's what you enjoy, and bringing it all back to the things we were talking about at the beginning of like do things, enjoy things, right? Because that's what makes you unique. That knife couldn't have come out of anybody else, right? This design right here that I'm doing could not have come out of anybody else. It might be something that is, and this couldn't even come out of me a year ago, or it couldn't even come out of me a year from now, right? Because this combination of things is stuff that I'm experiencing right now in my current life, right? When I made the topic, right, it was, if we remember correctly, it was I was playing Mega Man Legends, still am, but the reason why the robot's designed that way is because I was playing Mega Man Legends, right? And then the sushi place, right? I was looking into omakase places for various reasons, right? And then, I was just playing Mega Man. I was doing this thing, and we have a live stream, and it's an interior, right? And then, boom, here you go. So creating a space like this can only happen because of the hobbies and the interests that I currently enjoy, right? And and anytime you make a prompt for yourself, especially for those of you making a portfolio, find something that interests you. If you like cars, do cars. If you like photography, do photography. If you like photography and cars, do both of those, right? You pull it all together and you make something that's uniquely you. How many times have you ever seen post-apocalyptic, military, or coral reef or Viking, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many projects like that, and it gets fucking boring. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't really show us who you are, right? What you enjoy, what you like. And it really actually kind of makes it hard to hire you, mainly because I don't even know if you like this topic, right? Because if I saw two people of the same caliber, right? Same level of artist. And one of them has an affinity towards my project, where it's like, this person, they're both equally as good, but this person has a lot of Japanese art and we're on a Japanese project or whatever, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a no-brainer. And I'm sure, and I'm 1,000% sure that other person could probably do just as well, right? Because art is art. A good designer will be able to take any design and make it good, right? But the difference is your interest in the topic is going to bring more life into our project, right? Everybody here, right? Whether you're in the Discord now or listening on YouTube or watching this later, everybody has interests and has things that that you bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? Everybody does. Every single one of you has things that make you unique opposed to the next person. Whether it's where you're from, the culture that you grew up in, the experiences you've had, the hobbies that you do, the life that you lived, right? And those things make our projects, right, in the entertainment industry more and more unique with every artist that has that plays a role in it, that actually enjoys what they're doing. They're going to research a little bit deeper. They're going to find that thing that's a little bit more unique. They're going to understand the nuance with certain cultural things. And when they understand that, your project gets deeper. How many times have you seen a project where you're like, oh yeah, I like guns, that's a gun project, and then you watch this movie or play this game or whatever, you're like, oh, they wouldn't have that gun, this is World War II, and that's a World War one gun, or that's a Korean War gun, they wouldn't have that during World War II. You know what I'm saying? Like, that happens all the time. Not specifically for that topic, but it happens for everything, right? And so a lot of these things, it happens, and artists, they obviously, we try our best to do it, but if you just don't know the topic, you'd never catch that. You know what I'm saying? And so bring in your likes, and if you don't have likes, figure it out. You know what I mean? It sounds kind of funny. We're just like, just do it, but it really is the difference between you being hired and you not being hired. It sounds crazy that it's like that, but that's the secret. It really is. Like, do you enjoy what you do? Do you even like doing this? Know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense. Oh, that's cool. Should I leave that off? I kind of like that. It's a little bit brighter. Just got to geek out on the topic. I find that when working on the thing you don't like, it's just pure suffering. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I've had topics where I'm like, this is so dumb, I hate this. And as a professional, you have to do it. I mean, that's what it is. You just got to do it because you're being paid to essentially enjoy this topic. But me, right, being who I am, I do enjoy just deep diving into things and like just figuring out how things work. And I enjoy things like that, right? But that's me. Some people don't like that, and you have to kind of figure your way around that. The biggest thing for me really is just figure out how to like it. There's some topics that you're not going to be interested in, but do you let that get in the way of your profession? No, right? Because that's what being a professional is about. You're told, like, and you do the same type of research though. I think for me, all research is the same. The act of researching, all of it is exactly the same. The things you find out are different, right? But understanding the nuance, when you learn about certain cultures and deep dive into that one, take that understanding and apply it to that next topic, right? It's just like learning. Whenever you learn something, like for everyone here, right, is learning how to be artists, is learning how to design, draw, whatever, right? You're learning the whole process. And so what happens is, because you know how to learn in art, right? What does that mean, right? That usually means like, you're doing, you understand that you need to learn your fundamentals. You need to understand how to do the basics first and then build upon it, right? It comes down to like, when you start drawing or when you start wanting to get into entertainment, the first thing most of us do is draw boxes, right? Why is that? You know, the reason why we don't start with a painting like this is because there's too many things that you're going to miss out. You're not going to understand. And, you know, it's just a waste of time at that point. Just draw boxes, and then you evolve into like creating cuts in the boxes, and then you learn how to take those boxes and turn them into different shapes, like spheres and cones. And then you take those shapes and make them into basic objects like boxes or like bottles, right? Where it's like a compound shape, right? And then you start evolving those shapes from there, all in line drawing. And then you do the same thing in paint, and then you do the same thing with design. And then eventually you can kind of work your way up to a painting like this, right? Because this is all of those things combined, right? When we do research or when we're learning stuff, it's the same thing in everything, right? The reason why a lot of like, for example, whenever I was younger, me and a friend, we didn't have coaches or anything, so but we just taught ourselves how to play tennis. We were bad for a long time. Shit, we're still bad now. But we learned enough to kind of understand how to do things, and then we met more people, and then we started, doing better, and then we were growing and growing, and eventually, we made it to regionals, right? And it's something where, obviously, we had some people helping us throughout the way, but in that beginning phase, it was just learning how to learn, right? Learn how to learn. Everything is done exactly the same. Everything that you do, you're going to start from the basics, work your way up to more complex, right? And so since I learned how to do that, that transferred into my ability to do art, right? I was like, oh, so when I was in tennis, I just learned how to do a forehand. And then what I would do is I would run to the, like when it was on the backhand side, my left side, I would just run around and do another forehand because I was bad at backhand, right? And I would just keep doing forehand for a while. And eventually I switched it. I switched to backhand, and then I ran around it and did a backhand that way. And you just keep doing things. And you learn how to volley, you learn how to serve, you learn how to play the game and be more strategic about it, topspin, blah, 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 this and that, right? Art's the same way. Research is the exact same way, right? Once you learn how one culture works, you understand how deep one goes, and then you start looking at like, well, how do they farm, right? Oh, this culture is based off of this thing, which makes them do that. And then, you know what I mean? You can kind of make a lot of those similar comparisons, right? Because we're all people at the end of the day. We all do, generally speaking, the same thing. You know what I mean? We eat, survive, you know what I mean? We have leisure time, or try to, right? And it's all those things that really drives like culture. And what you want to try to find is that similarity, right? We might be thousands of years more advanced than some civilizations, but we all do the same things. We all need the same things. And you're trying to connect all those pieces together. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, very ranty, but you know how it is.
I think it is similar to that one experience that when we were a child, we do the same thing or play the same toy, even though we live separately, away from together.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because yeah, we're all kids, right? It's like, yeah, if you live in one country, I live in another. Um, maybe our specific background might be very similar, but generally speaking, right? It's like, every kid has that same experience, and that's what we're like tapping into whenever we're doing art, right? It's just like, you're trying to create human experiences. You might not have ever been to a restaurant like this, right? Maybe some people can't afford it, some people don't have access to it, whatever it is. But you've been to fancy places that feel hollow. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like going into an Erewhon or going into like like one of those like Louis Vuitton stores. It just feels dead inside. I don't know, man. It's just something about it. There's no life. But then you go to like marketplaces. You go to like, places where the quote unquote common people are, right? That's where a lot of the life is. And you see these things and you understand what that is. And you can tap into that feeling, that culture every time you do something, it's the human experience at the end of the day. And you want to understand what that is when you design. You know what I'm saying? So cool. I think we're good there. I'm gonna merge these together. I'm gonna just start. So like talking about this painting real quick. I'm basically kind of done with it. I'm like creating, I want this like kind of background to feel like there's things going on. There's, you know, people doing stuff, whatever. And I wanted to create, for one, a difference, right? So I kind of inversed that pattern. Like it's like a bunch of gold waves with like blue accents versus the other side is a bunch of blue waves with gold accents, right? And so, you know, looking at this image, we have that background now from where it was, right? Something like that. It's very like kind of stale, very like monochromatic, but just with a couple different changes, right? Just kind of adding emphasis on things, adding lighting on things, creating some material differences. It really does go a long way, you know. And I just kind of I emphasize certain parts, right? Because I have this, you know, robot here, and he's still the main guy. He's still the main look. And so I lit this side. There's a big light right there. I kept that there, right? And I put a bunch of highlights around him, the highest contrasts, all in this area, right? And so, you know, instead of like doing it over here, I could, but I want less focus on this guy, more on that guy. So the effect is a little bit stronger on certain areas, right? Still designing that visual feel, that understanding of what the composition is, kind of maintain those. Something that I see happen a lot is people kind of forget what their image is about, right? A lot of times because they, you know, it's very like they're just kind of going and they just lose track of the idea that, oh, hey, yeah, this is supposed to be about that main guy. You know what I mean? And so things like that, it really does help kind of push your image to that next level, you know? And yeah, we have something pretty cool happening. I kind of like where this painting's going. So. And all from like grayscale, you know what I mean? Like I think something that happens a lot, something that actually that I wanted to talk about with this painting specifically. I started from grayscale, right? I didn't texture this like I might have in 3D, right? Because for one, I don't like going too far when it comes to modeling, especially on a live stream, just because if people can't follow along or people don't understand what I'm doing, it can be a little off-putting, right? But I did it in grayscale, and then I colorized it myself. And it seems kind of weird because it's like, why don't you just add in a yellow light? Why don't you just add in a blue light, you know? Why didn't you just add the materials in there whenever you could? Because it looks almost the same. You could get that same exact effect, right? In 3D, and even better at that, right? It would have been better, generally speaking. But the thing that I really want to hit across here is that from here, I had the decision to keep that wall gold, right? And it's something where the more rendered something is, the more, you know, if it's more 3D, more designed out, right? Generally speaking, I usually would just leave it because I already technically thought it through where I'm like, oh yeah, it's, you know, it's gold. I already set the texture, already did the thing, so it's like fine. And then what happens is the image suffers because of it. Because when I have something as basic as possible, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that still needs to be designed. So I'll like add the texture, I'll kind of mess with the graphic read, and I'll do things. I have a little more freedom with it because I'm, you know, I force myself to actually do something with it, right? But if I started here in 3D, then I might not have done that because from here, that pattern came through because I didn't have anything there. And I really like the way that pattern turned out because it actually adds this kind of more regal vibe to it, more like gold. It's more like gaudy, kind of like over the top kind of feeling kind of place, right? And it's like creates that vibe of like sterileness where they're trying to almost like put up a front. You know what I'm saying? But the whole point being is I might not have done that if I did that in 3D. I think something to understand that people don't really quite do is that like understand that 3D doesn't have to be the final output, right? Whatever thing that you paint, right, doesn't have to stay that way the whole time. But when we do it in 3D, because we did it already, we have this understanding of, oh, it has to be that way. It has to stay that way. You know, because like I already thought of I already made that wall gold. I already made this thing black or whatever. You can change whatever you want to change to make something work better for you, right? And so just kind of remember that. It sounds very weird. It sounds very like whatever, but you'll be surprised how often you can change things on the fly like this, and it completely revamp your entire image. I did this last night. That wall decision was made yesterday, right? Because I had it painted gold, right? I had it painted like that, right? Obviously, it's a lot simpler, but I had it like that, and it's not that it's bad. I mean, looking at it right now, it's bad, but because I've been messing with it with the pattern on, so you know. But the whole point is, it's not that it looked terrible. It just wasn't really quite what I wanted, you know? It's not really quite there yet. It just, the image kind of falls apart whenever I don't have that, you know what I mean? And so applying that, it created, I don't know, something. It did something visually to this image that I didn't think it would do. But because of that, right, it's now in a space that works a lot better for me, right? So just things to think about, things to kind of push as you're designing. Just understand you don't have to stay with the same ideas. Adapt and grow as you design, and usually your designs will end up better because of it, right? So you know how it is. Let's see, where's my Norn at? If anybody can read katakana, that's my name right there. So Kenny. I need some Japanese looking. I need to leave my mark. So, what I'm probably gonna do is add a face to this. Probably a little bit later. We're running out of time at this point. But I'll probably just add a face to this and then call it a day. So, with that in mind, guys, just so everybody knows, this is the last stream for a little while. I am getting a little bit busy, and then for one, we're ending the year. And then two, I have a bunch of plans coming up in these New Year's for like work and various things like that. So I won't be able to do weekly live streams anymore. But I would like to either pick it up again or like do something kind of different, right? In a similar kind of vibe, right? Similar understanding. But I this is gonna be the kind of last stream for a little bit. So with that in mind, right, I just want to thank everybody that watched for this past year or just in general at all. This has been really cool, and hopefully this kind of like helps people kind of understand how these things happen. I think for me, this whole live stream experience really has been like just for me to like get off my ass and do stuff, right? Like here, I'll even show you. So like this past year, right, really has been, I mean, this is just a few of the better images, but there's like a bunch of sketches behind it. There's a whole portfolio that was basically just made, right? This the two dune buggy vehicles is like a whole project, right? There's like things behind it, there's the K truck, there's the the tea house image, the sci-fi ship right there. The very first illustration of the year was the chicken crossing the road one. It didn't look like that whenever I did it, but it was pretty close. And then the night dragon rider thing from I think it was last month, right? And then this painting now. And I think it's something where the reason I started this is because I was lacking in personal work, right? Because if you actually look at my portfolio, right, it's all like work stuff, right? And there's some personal work in there for sure. But a lot of this is old. This is like this is probably, I would consider one of the better ones of my personal work, right? But that's like at least 3 or 4 years old at this point, right? Maybe 4 or 5 years old. This one is like almost 8 years old, right? And I'm still showing because I don't have time for personal work. You know what I mean? I just don't have, time in my schedule to be doing personal work that often, but I need to keep my career stronger, right? And because of this live stream, I was able to make more work. And then this work right here really did find me more work, right? This painting right here, I actually sold at a convention, This painting right here got me work. These two paintings got me work. This painting up here got me work. You know, and it's just like people see it, and then you know it kind of leads into other things. Yes, you know, technically speaking, spending time out of my day to do feedback and live stream stuff. Technically speaking, right? When you think about it on a monetary level, might not be worth my time, right? And this, I think, for everybody, you might want to weigh this out. If you're a starting professional or even like an advanced student that needs to be doing portfolio work, understand that some of these personal things might not be quote unquote worth your time. But what if someone paid you a salary for some of these paintings? You know, not for the painting specifically, but they're like, hey, we need something exactly like that. You know, or even just showing off your latest skill, because as an early professional, you're not able to show any of that work for 3 or 4 years. And by the time you're able to show it, more often than not, you don't even want to show it because it's like, it's old, you know, it's old, and there's junior work on top of that. It's like icons and like props and stuff. You're like, I want to do keyframes. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so doing this personal work really does get you to where you need to go. I would highly advise everybody take time to do something every month. One painting a month is all you need, right? One painting a month is all we did. And I didn't even have a full year because I took, I think it was like April, May, and June, April, May off, and then started back in June. And it's just like, we didn't even have the full year. But within this, there's these images, there's a couple more. I think there's like 22 in total in terms of like thumbnailing and all that stuff. 23 now with this new one, right? And it's something that I wouldn't have had if I just didn't do this. You know what I mean? And so just really like as artists, right? Take time to do personal work, do things to help promote yourself, right? To push yourself out there for people to see you, because they can't hire you if they don't know who you are, right? They can't pick you up if they've never heard of you before. And they can't hire you if they haven't seen any of your best work, because a lot of people are qualified to do work, but the work that they show could be old, right? I updated my website, I don't know, I think like last month or something like that. And because of that, I think I've gotten like 3 or 4 more contracts because of it. Just, I think just because a lot of my newer work's more visible now, especially with Transformers and Blue Eye, because I didn't have that on my website before. And now people are like, oh, hey, are you available? This and that, right? And, little things like this really do go a long way. It might not seem like much. It might seem like one painting, right? And it took me a month to kind of get here, maybe a month and a half for this specific topic. But if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have it, right? This first painting that I did here, boom, this painting right here, this took me like 3 months to do, right? And this is my first personal work painting that I actually like spent time and did when I first started working, right? It took me like 3 or 4 months. I could probably do this in like a day or two at this point, but like this painting took so much time, and it's not even that good anymore. But when I did it, I was like, oh wow, I guess I can do something. And it was like 1 or 2 hours every day after work, some weekends, and just casually chipping away at it. VR was really big at the time. So this is a VR base. And I was just kind of like growing it from there, And then from there, a lot of these paintings kind of became that. It's just me doing, some of these are demos and stuff like that. But overall, like, it's just 1 or 2 paintings every once in a while, just to kind of keep that going, to show my latest skill. And this project, on top of the entire live stream, was just another extension of that, So definitely keep doing things. You don't need to take a class to be able to do more work. You don't have to have any motivation to do it. Just paint for a little bit. Paint as much as you need. But always be chipping away at something, because you never know what's going to lead, right? So Vishal says, hey, Kenny, that pattern is kind of loosening. Yeah, right? It feels very like, I don't know, something about it. It's off-putting, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels very, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's a weird way to say it, but it feels like it's vibrating. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. There's something about it. And it's something where I felt it was appropriate for this restaurant theme. Not just because it's actually a Japanese pattern. It's the Japanese wave pattern. But it feels like the people that own this place or run this place would like kind of stereotype that kind of pattern and then do it in this kind of gaudy way that like really like hits. And if it's not very uh it's not very what is it called, like calming, you know what I'm saying? When you go to a place like this, you want that nice experience, you want this very nice vibe, and you know, we're trying to create the opposite of that, right? We're trying to like create a commercialized version of what this experience is supposed to be. And so when designing it, it creates this like weird experience, you know, and you don't know it immediately looking at it, but you feel it. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what I was going for in a lot of this. You're just trying to create an experience that people understand at a core level. They might not get it right when they see it, but they will understand it because we're just humans at the end of the day. If you can tap into that experience, anything goes. You know what I'm saying? So. Cool. All right, guys. Well, that is it. Live streams for 2024 is over. So, with that in mind, thanks for watching, you know, for this past however long. Thanks for all the questions. Hopefully, you know, you got some good information out of this. These videos are going to be up, so you can kind of watch this whenever. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, please join, participate, right? Be part of that group. It is something that, you know, the more you put in, the more you get out of it. Right? If you participate, others will be, you know, encouraged to participate as well. I'm definitely going to be participating in that more now that we're not going to be doing live streams to kind of offset that like activity. But yeah, you know, if you need a community to kind of be a part of, if you want to be part of something where, you know, you don't feel like you're alone, or you can see some of the higher end students in the field as well as professionals and see what work they're doing, definitely join, be a part of it. It's on my links. Just go to my Instagram, go to my website. Just find me. You'll find the Discord in my links, my link tree or whatever. But yeah. So with that in mind, thanks for hanging out, and that's all I got for now. Hopefully we can start up something again soon. Cool.
Thank you, Kenny. See you next time.
Later. Yeah. Thanks, man.